Good morning, everybody. Welcome to your Rangers Review morning briefing. It is Monday, the 18th of August. I'm Derek Clark. I'm joined by a double whammy. First of all, Joshua Barry. How goes it, Joshua?
Goes good, mate. Goes good. How are you?
Yeah, all good, thank you. Can't complain. Stevie Clifford also joins us, as ever, on a Monday morning. How goes it, Stevie?
Good, mate. Good. Hope everybody is well this fine morning.
Yes, absolutely. Of course, game's coming thick and fast for Rangers at the moment. Huge match tomorrow. We'll discuss that and what unfolded at Ibrox over the course of the weekend. Before we do that, though, a quick word for our podcast sponsors, Willow's Fencing. If you need a new fence, folks, these are the guys to call. The Glasgow-based fencing company you can trust and proud partners of the Rangers Review. They provide exceptional work, aiming to deliver nothing but perfection in every job, offering free consultations and 10% off if you use the code Rangers Review over on their website, willows-fencing.com. Right, lots to talk about. We'll kick off with the latest signing. Joshua, you broke the story over the weekend that Jayden Meghoma was on the radar of Rangers. This comes hot on the back of the news that Jefty is nearing a return to his homeland. Robbie Fraser, of course, has departed on a permanent deal, joining Dunfermline. So Rangers have looked to sort of plug that gap in at left back, and they've brought this lad in on loan from Brentford for the season. Spent last season on loan at Preston North End. And can't say I know much about this chap, although I do have a friend that is a Preston commentator, and he's a good judge of player. He says that he's decent and he liked him last season. So that's what I'm going on. Joshua, what can you tell us about him?
Depends if decent means different things to different people. It's either a huge compliment or a very mid-tier.
Yes.
One. But what can you tell us? That it moved very quickly. Derek got wind of it on Friday. We obviously had the story on Saturday morning before the game. Russell Martin spoke about it in his post-match press conference and moved really in line with this Jefty deal, which moved very quickly as well last week. Would expect that to be completed very soon. And Rangers needed a left back. Meghoma was one that's kind of been looked at earlier points in the summer, in part because Russell Martin knows him. Now we can come on to the transfer window a little bit more as a whole, Derek. And is it good that managers are getting players they've worked with before? Have we seen this movie before, etc.? We can get into that. In isolation, I think there's a couple of sides to it. And one, you have a player who, he's 19 years old. He's not played that much football, and I've seen some concern about the numbers he put up in the Championship. I don't think you can read too much. I don't know what Stevie thinks. I don't think you can read too much into 10 games with Preston. I would trust the data that Brentford have used to spend £10 million on him more than kind of top line statistics after a loan in the second half of last season. Very highly rated. Just having spoken to a couple of people about him, and consistent feature at England under-19 Youth International, and has worked with Martin. On the flip side of it, you're looking at potentially, until if and when Rangers bring in another left back, which is tied up a little bit in the fact that they're still trying to get rid of Van Yilmaz out the door. You've potentially got 3 of your back 4 are loan players, and loan players without an option to buy. And like Max Aarons on the other side, there's this link to having worked with Martin before, which maybe helps players settle quickly. Again, I think there's sometimes negatives to managers being so influential in recruitment, but we can perhaps come on to that. And I guess like Mikey Moore is a player who hasn't played that much football at all, and it's a big ask to put him into a situation like Rangers at any point, not least at the minute. But there is excitement about the potential of the player, the profile of the player. A lot, as ever, relies on the circumstance to see how this particular transfer will work out.
Stevie, what do you make of this signing? I've got to say, personally, he's a young lad. I've said it on videos before. I think Rangers really lack experience in the back line. I would be a bit apprehensive if this lad is the guy this season. I think I would like to see Rangers bring in another experienced left back, I've got to admit. Jayden Meghoma, what's your thoughts on it?
Pretty much same as you, Derek. I think it's a risky one. Probably because we don't know much about him. So from our point of view, it feels like that. But I think the biggest issue is that, he's very inexperienced. it could be like a rabbit in the headlights when it comes to a game like Tuesday night, for example. Brentford aren't going to loan him out and send him out up here without a guarantee of game time either. So we're looking to bring in somebody else when Ridvan Yeoman's finally goes to the Besiktas in advanced talks with them since the moment he signed for us. So it's really frustrating when it comes to that move. But for Meghoma coming in, I think it's a difficult one for fans to really trust, because we don't know a lot about him, and there's the age thing and the experience thing. So, and the other thing is as well, Derek, a lot of things that people are saying is that that's 3 out of 4 potential back line is all on loan, and we're basically pushing the can down the line for next season when John Souttar and James Tavernier are out of contract as well. We could end up having to look for a whole back line next summer, which is difficult. So I would hope to see, or would have hoped to have seen some experience coming in defence, which hasn't arrived yet. So, as usual, we'll give the player time, 5 minutes, before we make our snap judgments on how good he is. But it's a big ask for a young fella to come in.
It strikes me, Derek, as you see, if he was coming in as if Rangers had started the season really well, they had a first choice left back in there who was 23, 24, and Meghoma was maybe coming in to start 20 games in the season and compete. It does feel a little bit more like one of those signings, even though, again, if you speak to people who know the player, there is a real belief that he has high potential, which is why Brentford have spent that much money on him. But I agree with Stevie too. Like even just on Saturday, which we'll come on to, it's a difficult environment in which to develop players at the moment. You need to get things, I think, ticking and get the crowd on side and get a bit of belief to do that. The Rangers have still been working hard to try and get Meghoma in for Tuesday night. It'll be a big game to throw him in for, but also, as we've seen in Europe so far, when Rangers have played without a left foot on the left side of the defence, it can look a little bit one-dimensional on that side.
I'm a bit apprehensive about it, I've got to admit. After the game at the weekend, Russell Martin was asked about Jayden Meghoma. He said, "We've always been ready to replace Shefty. Jayden's a player we know from Southampton. He spent a year with us as a young boy, training every day, understands the work. Top talent, played for England at all the youth levels. Brentford signed him for a lot of money for a teenager, and he went on loan last year in the Championship and did really well. So he's a player we know and like, and hopefully at some point he'll be a Rangers player, and you'll know what that when he is." So there you go. It comes off the back as well, of course, with the Nobel Mendy deal, which has collapsed. He won't be joining Rangers, Joshua. So it looks like, do you think that's a case of, maybe a plan B in the offing? Do you think that Meghoma would have happened if Mendy was materialised, if you like?
Yeah, told that they're separate deals because Mendy wasn't. He could have played at left back, but like in an emergency situation. And in isolation, the thing is, Rangers have done a lot of work in this window, and they've spent a lot of money, which is why I think the point that Stevie makes, and I think Graham made in the comments there, about 3 of the back 4 potentially being loan players, I think that is a bit of a concern for the money that has been spent. But they need another centre-back because they've only got 3 at the moment. If you don't count Davies and Insiala and others who aren't in the picture, Leon King, and they need a left-sided player because they've not got that option too. And Nobel Mendy was also close to a move to PSV earlier in the year. Yeah. So you can read between the lines with that, but it does mean that Rangers now need to go and get someone else who's preferably left-footed, can play in this high line, and we saw against Alloa at the weekend that high line, if it's not well marshalled, especially the left side of defence with Bailey Rice playing out of position, you need additions there, you need physicality there, and you need a left foot there. So there's a lot to do in terms of incomings and outgoings with 2 weeks of this window to go. That's for sure.
Yeah, and again, it falls into experience. I wonder if I'm not saying this is the answer, but Ben Davies is there, a left footer, centre back. Stevie's shaking his head. I just think may as well use him if he's there. Players are playing.
It's reached that point of the summer window, hasn't it? Whereas
I don't know what the deal
I
is.
agree with you. I agree with you, Derek, in that it's like when you can't get these players out, and there's this kind of almost bomb squad. I don't.
Bad enough as it is.
Yeah, no, I agree with the point that what's the point of having these players there if they're not playing? All the more reason to try and get some of these guys out before the end of the window.
But it's not the reason to play them, though. They're the reason why we're in the position we are, because they're not good enough, and it's the reason why we tried to ship them out last year. So don't keep giving the same guys that have failed you in the past opportunities, because it's not good enough. Ben Davies will be fine. He'll be a 6 out of 10 until he comes up against somebody physical or somebody that...
I have no issue with him playing tomorrow, Stevie.
I do. He's not good enough.
Well,
he's nowhere near good enough.
What's been served up at the moment?
But why would you continue to give guys a chance that have never...
Well, he's proved to be okay in Europe, is he not?
Ben Davies?
Yeah, has he not been pretty okay in these matches?
No, he hasn't. He's not excelled in any time he's played for Rangers. He's been comfortable, and then he's went to Rugby Park or whatever, or played against a physical opponent and been terrible. Bruges are going to be sharp and be on it. Ben Davies is another reason why Rangers are in the position they are in the squad. And that's the reason why we need to get rid of him, because he's not good enough, and so are several other ones. But I'm not forgiving these guys that have already failed us. I will just chuck them in against Bruges. That to me is just allowing them to have another opportunity to let us down.
They're obviously not in the European squad too, so it's not. But I think the point you may be making, Derek, is that you look at that squad at the weekend and you think, oh, there's nothing, not a natural left foot or left back. But then I agree with Stevie that you've got to be ruthless and show people that they've not got a future here at all, because you do have to get them out the door. You do have, there's a lot of wages for Rangers to get out before the transfer window closes. But yeah, they do need a left foot from somewhere, just someone with a left foot at the back that would.
Yeah, and experience, a bit of experience, played more than 10 games would be ideal. So. Yeah, that's the issue. One player I wanted to bring up, Joshua, because I've seen a lot of chatter about him as a player that Rangers were interested in. You had the story earlier on in the summer about Josh Mulligan. Of course, this was when Niels Coppin was at the club, a player that was identified, and of course, interest cooled in him. Hibs went and took him from Dundee, scored a screamer yesterday, and looked good the other night for Hibs, certainly impressing there. Could he have not done a job for Rangers, do you reckon?
I think he could have. I think he falls into that Lyle Cameron category of someone who'd have been pretty low risk, potentially high value. Spoke about it at the time, and that he's a good, powerful ball carrier too, which Rangers have started to address. I think someone like Tello Asgard will give them that, but they've not had that in the past. But yeah, it's be a talking point because he was good for Hibs last week too. As far as we understand it, as I understand it. That story was out in April, and the move was very, very close to being done. Some stalling and between the takeover and changes and a new approach going for new targets, which is perhaps understandable too. Cameron Burgess was another one at the time that was very close to move to Rangers, and he kind of fits that model, I guess. Eric have been left-footed, fairly experienced. Has went to Swansea now, but had been playing with Ipswich in the Premier League last season. So I think Mulligan would have done a job, but he's Hibs player now, and Lyle Cameron for me has been one of the more impressive signings because he's had quite a quiet impact, but yeah, he gives you. I actually think he's been a really intelligent player who knows his system. That's what stood out to me so far. He makes good runs. He feels like you saw that immediately in that first leg against Pilsen, opening up spaces for other doing unselfish work. So yeah, I think it would have been a low risk, potentially high return for what you pay. But yeah, that's another twist in a summer that has been absolutely filled in for Rangers.
Yeah, I thought it was a sign that would have made sense. Versatile, lots of energy, Scottish, which we've always banging on about to bring more Scottish lads in. But he's doing the biz in his early days at Hibs, that's for sure. Right, Stevie, you were at the game on Saturday, 4-2 against Alloa. Certainly still that the questions remain. We've touched on at the top of the show there about defensive frailties. There were some bright moments. Goals, Barami's goal was an absolute beauty. Mikey Moore, of course, made his debut from the off. We've seen Tello Asgard as well. What did you make of what you witnessed at Ibrox? Of course, Rangers will now play Hibs, incidentally, because they did beat Livingston yesterday. So it's a home tie against Hibs in the quarterfinals of the Premier Sports Cup. But Saturday, Stevie, what was your main takeaways?
Not a lot, to be honest. I mean, so many changes. I don't think it was ever going to be smooth or ever going to be a great performance as such. They're obviously still bathing in. Pleased we got through. Defensively, it was a bit of a horror show. the goals that they conceded were verging on ridiculous. And it shows, I think, just a lack of leadership throughout the kind of squad, that even the reserves you're bringing in, there's no real experience there, because the way they defended those goals just needed that. It needed somebody to take charge of those moments, and they didn't. Offensively, they were fine. I mean, look, the way I saw it was almost like a pre-season friendly where they realised if we need to go up a gear and get a goal, we'll go and get one, or we'll go and push for one. And whether that's right or not, and I'm not sure it is, when in our position, that's how it felt they were playing the game. Just happy to retain possession and kind of knock it about. But I mean, they scored a couple of nice goals. The fourth one was well executed on the break. It was a good set piece for the second. The first one, as you said, was a lovely finish. Saw enough of Mikey Moore to think he's going to be decent and cause teams a few problems in games. So aside of that, Derek, there wasn't a lot to take away from it. I mean, it was a game against a lower league side who came and gave it their all, were well organised and stuff like that, and fair play to them. But I just felt like Rangers were in control at all times, and they could have upped it if and when they wanted to. But that's my biggest issue. I think that, are we good enough to be treating games like that as a separate discussion to whether or not, Saturday's performance justified that kind of look back on it. So it is what it is. I didn't really take a lot away from it with that many changes with defensively and stuff like that. I mean, it's another game kind of ticked off and you move on. Like, it's all about Bruges tomorrow night, Derek, and getting it right when we get to that one.
Yeah, 10 changes in all to the team that took on Alloa at the weekend. Wasn't expecting that, given that Russell Martin's pre-match press conference said it would be 11 changes, which is technically correct, but wasn't expecting 10. Joshua, what was your thoughts on
it? I thought it wasn't great. I agree with Stevie that it's 10 changes, and for example, the defensive issues. I don't think Bailey Rice will ever be a Rangers left back. That's not his position. So you give some mitigation to how the chances originated in the first half. The moment where Nasser Jika gets caught carrying the ball out from the back, that is a bit of a problem. I think, to lose the ball there, but also you expect your teammates to kind of bail you out and maybe regain possession. I just thought the issue was Alloa looked more. I felt Alloa looked more comfortable than Rangers with how the game was going at points, and that's, again, with the fact that it's 10 changes, so don't take too much from it. I still think that to play this style of football and the control and the patience that is needed at points, you need to have a really confident team. And I still think Rangers looked a bit fragile in moments, especially when that game went 3-2. The set pieces are a little bit of a worry for me at the moment, Derek. I don't know how many goals Rangers have conceded. I think one against Alloa, one against was it Dundee, and then Dundee obviously hit the post as well. I think we've seen a lot of, and we'll cover it in more detail on the website at some point. They're defending very zonally, and teams are just going, right, well, we will just put our big guy to the back. He'll win his initial header, and then in the second phase, it's kind of it's open game, if you will, for who wants to get on the end of the ball. And I thought you saw that, although Russell Martin said players were out of position for that second goal because they'd come on to defend the set piece. I thought you saw a very similar theme to what Dundee did. So that's a little bit of a concern for me. But again, 10 changes, hard to draw concrete conclusions. Would have liked a little bit more entertainment, maybe coming away.
There's not really any entertainment at the moment, is there?
It's not enough. It's not enough. And listen, Adam and I spoke about this at length on the Tactics podcast. I am definitely on the side of things that if you're going to completely overhaul your playing system, if you're going to try and overhaul things in the club, and if people have tried to do that in the years before, it's just going to take time. And you can't expect an all singing, all dancing system, style of play. You can't expect that without the almost painful process to get there, especially when you've had it's not as if you've had a squad doing the full pre-season. There's been loads of changes throughout that. You've got European games early. And I think one of the big issues for me, Derek, has been you're going from a game against Dundee last weekend where it's like take the risks and be adventurous and get forward more quickly, to then away in Pilsen where Russell Martin's critique after the game was we were almost too risky, we didn't look after the ball enough. So I think that maybe makes things a little bit more complex. Yes, it'd be fair to expect more entertainment, absolutely, at this point. I also just think that it's a long, painful process, kind of, to get to the end goal if you want to completely overhaul your style of play, unfortunately.
Yeah, the end goal is something that, I mean, the supporters, you can't deny the atmosphere at the moment isn't the best. What is the end goal? A lot are asking, and what sort of pain will we have to endure before we reach that end goal? Does that justify, Stevie, at this point in time, given what's been served up? Can you see little shoots of what, if it does click, what it could be, and could that be successful here?
Yeah, absolutely, but it's not been enough. I think Josh was right. I think, in spells, and I suppose what you can take from this is whatever way you want to decipher it. But on the midweek game against Pilsen, when they had to score, they went and done that. But it's the fact that for that 10-minute spell, they looked decent. And even when they scored again, they took control of the game. So you could say from that point of view, when they have to. But the other side of it is, well, why are they waiting to that point, and why are they taking so long to kind of get into things? So I'd like to see a wee bit more urgency in how we set about games. Not necessarily, I don't mean like being all over teams and going attack, but we seem to be, taking our time to feel our way into games, which I don't think Bruges will let us away with. I don't think Celtic would let us away with. So these are games that are coming up and we need to be prepared for. But yeah, I mean, there's been movement. There's been times where you see, right, okay, it's looked good. And bear in mind, players still have to come into that team, to make it worthwhile and make it the system that he wants. But the biggest issue I think Russell Martin has got is players defaulting and going back into safe spaces and doing things that being safe. Now, Andy Halliday talked about how easy it was to defend. That's not how we're supposed to look, and it's not how we're supposed to set up. And the biggest issue with that and the things he's talking about and the stuff he pointed out is true, but it's not what we're supposed to be doing. And the biggest issue we have is players, and in my opinion, one of the biggest issues Russell Martin has is players just going into themselves too much and not being brave enough to go and express themselves. But Josh was right. I mean, you're trying to rebuild absolutely everything, and whether we like it or not, and this is the God's honest truth, gentlemen, there's people that don't want Russell Martin here. They don't want him to succeed. They don't want his brand of football, and they're not prepared to give it any light stretch of the imagination of time-wise to see how it's going to work out. So we can sit and say, it looks okay and it looks good, and as soon as you come off, they will say you're a happy clapper because you're trying to see things that aren't there, because people just don't want to see that. So there's two sides of it. So I would say so far what we've seen from Russell Martin is not enough in terms of the football, but you certainly have seen moves and stuff that's been practiced and stuff that of how it should look, but it's not enough. And I think Joshua, being more tactically astute and everything else, and on the back of the show, would probably say the same thing, that there needs to be more than 10 minutes spells where we are in control and we look good. And that's another thing about Joshua talking about being in control and being patient. There's times where it defaults back into before, and they'll try and rush something, or they'll try and swing an aimless ball. And they're the kind of things that, if this is going to work, one, the crowd need to understand, and two, we need to iron out of our game. So, Derek, I understand people's kind of frustration, but at the same time, there's a little side of me that, I mean, we sat and spoke about it for so long that we didn't want him here, but now he's here. You need to embrace it. You need to try and at least give it an opportunity. And I just feel like everybody's sitting, or the majority of the people are sitting, waiting on it failing just so that they can go full-on pitchforks into it. You've seen the rumours over the weekend, baseless nonsense about the dressing room, Nico Raskin and stuff like that. And we don't need that going into a Bruges game. And that's a frustration for me. And that I feel like, people aren't prepared to let that kind of iron out, because they've already decided that it was going to fail before it even came in. So, no, a very long-winded answer to way around. We aren't seeing enough, but we are seeing some things if people will just let it manifest a wee bit.
Okay, I think certainly these 4 games up to the international break are monumental for fan feeling towards Russell Martin. He has to pick up results in these games for me. I worry, just given what we've seen, that may prove too difficult at this point in time. But there you go. One other thing I wanted to bring up, and I'm glad that Andrew mentioned this. He says, good finish by Curtis. Yeah, it was. He rounded things off. A nice little finish. A Marco Negri-esque celebration. It wasn't a Panathinaikos style celebration from young Findlay, but his future is an interesting one. Joshua, would you be hoping that does he have a part to play this season, do you think, in the first team?
Just before we go on to that, I want to follow up on one of Stevie's points there, which I agree with. A little bit of tactics for you, Derek, if you'll allow me. But Xavi Alonso, when he went to Bayer Leverkusen, there was an interview. I think it was Granit Xhaka or someone like that, and they were speaking about, we have these ideas with managers when they go into clubs that tactics are all these complicated algorithms that are imprinted into players' brains, and then it plays out like an NFL textbook. And obviously there's a scale to these things. But he said one of the biggest things, I think it was Xhaka, it might have been someone else, that Xavi Alonso worked with his team on all the time was tempo. Was when do you slow it down and when do you speed it up? So I think for the Findlay Curtis goal, it's a great example of Rangers moving through the gears quickly, attacking space. But Stevie's right, that so often I think you see they're caught in between and Max Aarons, I think, has been a culprit for this, for me at points, because he's receiving the ball a bit deep. And then that means that rather than, maybe that's instructive, you presume it is to a degree, but I think if he pushes up a bit, suddenly the other two players on that right side can push up a bit, creates a little bit more space. Maybe the opposition are defending on their heels instead of on their toes. But the story about Xavi Alonso was one of the biggest things in his coaching is not so much this formation or that formation, but it's having players in the middle of the pitch who knew when have you got a little bit more space in the left and the right and you can speed things up there and then attack, or when is there space to transition. And I thought you saw Joe Rothwell do that a bit more this weekend as a number 6, thread some balls through, try and keep the tempo. But that's, I think, Rangers' biggest issue, and where leadership comes into it, is you need 3 or 4 players on the pitch to go, right, this is a moment where we do this, or I recognise this trigger and take ownership of the tempo of the game. So I just wanted to make that slightly nuanced point. On Findlay Curtis, I think it depends what else happens in the striking position in the forward areas. Rangers are still looking at forwards because there is this potential that one leaves. I think there is interest in Findlay Curtis in the Premiership for a loan deal, and I would expect, interested to hear what Stevie's heard about this, but I would expect if he does go out and loan Findlay Curtis, it won't be as part of this co-op agreement, but it will be to the top flight. But he's made a good impact so far, and you're also looking at it thinking, is he someone that you want to keep around because he's got a nose for goal and he can come on and finish games strongly? I wouldn't be rushing him into a loan move at the moment, even though for his development, those type of minutes might be really important.
Stevie?
Well, on 2 loan players, I think at the weekend, I think you've seen the difference. Findlay Curtis, when he ran through, was always going to finish that, Derek, and it's not a thing where I want to say I've said this, but we've spoken about Findlay Curtis before. I asked Philip Clement about him getting game time because he had scored 60 odd goals in 2 seasons for the unders coming up. So when he was running onto that ball, Derek, there was only one place that was going, because he is a finisher and he can do that. I'm of the opinion that Findlay Curtis should be around the squad the way it is at this very moment in time. And I would go further to say, and I'm sorry if this upsets a few people, Findlay Curtis should be ahead of the likes of Oscar Cortez, who hasn't done anything in a Rangers jersey in too long a time, where the young fella has. So we've got a £4 million asset there that we need to do something with. So I understand why he would start a game like the weekend, but Findlay Curtis can consider himself to be unfortunate. And with Joshua, if he does go out on loan, I'd love to see him go down to Kilmarnock, where it's been rumoured, and him to get proper game time, because he'll learn a lot about the side of the game, the physicality and everything else down there, and he'll hopefully do well. But if that's on the basis that we bring in somebody else on the right-hand side, which I think we need to do.
Yeah.
So that's one to watch. On the other flip side of it, you looked at Bailey Rice on Saturday, Derek, and this goes back to what I've said about Bailey Rice before. And it'd be interesting to see what Joshua thinks. I think he's lovely on the ball, great technique, great passer, but see his all-round awareness of the game. And I've told you that this is what I've thought before, and it's not just a revision of what we saw on Saturday. See, game-wise, I don't think he's up where he should be in terms of where he plays the game almost in reverse. When he's on the ball, he takes too long. He almost goes. He looks like he's going through the motions at times, and that's what people were saying. He didn't even try to get back for that goal. He did try. He's just not done that side of the game because Bailey Rice has been better than every single player in his category all the way up. So he hasn't had to work hard. He needs to go somewhere and play in a game in a team where he's going to have to work hard. He's going to have to put in the yards. He's going to have to be part of the team. At the moment, Bailey Rice stands out because he's excellent on the ball and he's good at doing the technical side of it. See, for the actual working side of it, he doesnn't know and hasn't experienced that, Derek. And that's what I've been trying to say about what I've seen from Bailey Rice in the youth team and moving up the last couple of years, that he hasn't experienced enough of that. And I think you saw that on Saturday. Technically very good. He played a lot of good balls down the left-hand side. I wouldn't send him on loan to Motherwell. See, again, I think that's too high. I think Bailey Rice needs to go to Wraith Rovers for 6 months. I really do. Or somewhere like that in the Championship where he gets shouted at and gets his experience of playing in proper men hard football where he's running about. He's having to do the dirty side of the game, Derek, because he's got no idea of at the moment in time how to do that. And I think that's been one of the biggest things. Michael Beale said it, Barry Ferguson said it, Philip Clement said it. He's behind in his development. And when you watch his game on Saturday, I think that's what they're talking about. And it's what I've seen from him. So it's only my opinion. Doesn't mean it's right, but it's just my opinion on where he is and the difference between the two players. And it'd be interesting to see what Joshua thinks on Bailey Rice and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he needs a loan move, doesn't he? And I felt a wee bit sorry for him on Saturday because he's not a left back, and I don't think he's a player who he's not known for his off ball work, and that's not where he's at his most comfortable, like chasing someone down the line. Yeah, agree with you. He needs football, and there's the old story with him and Lennon Miller that Bailey Rice was regarded as like the best quality player in his age bracket. He made that move. Now, I don't think he's been helped by the fact that if you think of the he's had some injury issues at points. I think I'm right in saying, but he also has had a situation where maybe if Michael Beale stays, then he gets more game time early. But under Clement, he has to almost do that whole process again, and from when he signed his initial contract back in 2023, this would not have been the kind of pictured development that's in place. And this all comes into the state of the club, Derek. Like, who's your academy director? Is he there for a long period of time? What's the relationship like to the first team? How can you plan for a player's pathway in the kind of tumultuous situation that Rangers have been in for the last 3 years? The answer is all these things, I think, fall by the wayside a little bit. So yeah, I think he just needs exposure to play a lot of football, and he's clearly got he's clearly got a level of ability on the ball and a composure and an ability to do that, set the tempo, change the tempo of the game, pass through the lines, that is so instinctive and such a valuable asset. But to go and be that Rangers number 6 eventually, you need to add a lot more around it, and a loan move is obviously the easiest way to start that process, I think.
Yeah, I would go along with that as well. I think that would do him the world of good. Right, we'll wrap up there. Before we go, folks, just a heads up. It is press conference day ahead of the game tomorrow. We are due to speak to Russell Martin around about 2:30 at Auchenhowie. We'll get an update as to who is available. That European squad as well. I'd very much expect Jayden Meghoma to be part of that. So we'll get an insight into that. Just keep your eyes peeled on the YouTube channel, on the social media accounts for all the fallout from that. And also, if you want to learn a wee bit more about Club Bruges, I will be speaking to a podcaster that covers him in great detail by the name of Hans Noyel, who will be speaking to us. We'll be going live about 6 p.m. Josh has got his finger up.
My finger up. Quick point. I'll be at the 19s game today, so we'll have something on the website later if people playing Hearts, new under-19s league. Obviously, a lot of changes in the youth structure, which we'll cover in more detail. But if people want a little bit of match coverage, I'll put up a few updates and a piece from the game, and I'll maybe send in some thoughts for the morning briefing with yourself and Chris tomorrow as well.
Super stuff. Excellent. So we've got you covered, folks. Plenty of Rangers content to come your way. Big thank you to you all for tuning into the show as ever. It's very much appreciated. Big thanks to Stevie and to Joshua as ever also. And if we don't speak to you later, enjoy your Monday. Bye for now.